Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV, and today we're going to be taking a chorus effect and using it to create a really cool transition on some strings for a cinematic-like track. And let's give it a listen. Yeah, so pretty cool stuff. Let's go ahead, let's take a look at the strings specifically and just see sort of what's going on here. So let's just solo them. And right here is the section where the transition happens. So that's what's going on right there. And what we're doing is we're taking material that we already have. The listener was already familiar with it. It started the track off, and we're repurposing it and morphing it to fit the moment. And then we push into the new section. So I love doing effects like this because they're very organic and they sound really musical. You'll notice I actually keep it around over here a bit as a sort of a background element. I just thought it fit really well with what was going on. So that's our plan. And the way we're going to do this is we say, hey, why don't we just make it a bit pitchier? A way to do that is to use a chorus. So here's a chorus. I've explained how choruses work before on this channel, but I'm going to do it just one more time real quick. Brief overview. All a chorus does is you have your direct sound or your original signal that goes straight out of the plugin. And then you have these delays. You have these copies. It clones your sound. It detunes it a little bit. And then it sends that out. And so there's these delayed copies coming out that are detuned a little bit. And you get this really sort of lush sound, or in this case, you get this really sort of super pitchy sound. And if you go through Syntorus, there's actually a patch called the effects sequence that I really liked what it was doing here. A lot of the time when I'm applying effects like this, I like to just peruse presets and get a general vibe for whatever's going on. And if I feel the need to, I'll go in and I'll adjust it to whatever I want at that moment. Presets with things like choruses and phasers, I feel like are excellent starting points. So went through, found effects sequence. And there are a couple things going on. So first, we notice in the mixer, line 3 is off. There's nothing coming out of it. And line 1 is on. I'm actually going to turn on line 2 as well. So we're going to have 2 delays going on. And what we have here is we have on line 1, we have our depth. So the depth is how much it is allowed to be moved around pitch-wise. This is extremely high. And so is this. So you'll notice they're both extremely high. And what I'm doing is I'm mixing it in. So this effect over here is not on at all. And then over here, it comes in, but we're mixing it into taste. So it's very, very aggressive, but we're not applying it all the way all the time. We also have an offset knob here. And we're not using it in this case, but just in general, when I grab the offset knob, it's usually to cause some phasing to occur or to try and get phasing to line up a certain way. And what I mean by that is we have 1 coming out, we have our direct sound, and we have 2. And when I move the offset, it's going to delay 2 by even more, but it's specifically within the range of 0 to 20 milliseconds. And the reason it's in this range is because we can get some really useful phasing, comb filtering kind of effects from this. Now, in this case, our processing is so intense, this won't make an enormous difference, but check it out. We'll just do it without first. And now we'll dial it up, I don't know, to like 5 milliseconds. And we can get some more aggressive echoes and just different phasing. This isn't the best example, just because of the nature of the material. But in other circumstances where things are a lot more lined up, like harmonically, this can play a really, really cool role in moving it around. I actually use this quite a bit sometimes on certain bass sounds. In this case though, again, not that important. And then finally down here, notice our tremolo is on both. And this is very important. If we have the tremolo off, what the tremolo does is it modulates the volume. It's an amplitude modulation. And so it's actually ducking it in and out, which helps keep it sort of under control. If I take it off, yeah, it gets out of hand. So what this is doing is basically ducking it out of the way. But rhythmically, so it's really useful that way. And then we also have modulation and cutoff. We are not using the filter on either one of these, so these knobs do not matter to us. Now, each one of these lines has an LFO. Again, LFO 3 and line 3 don't matter because line 3 is off. Now, over here, this is just the rate at which this can happen. And if we go to 1, so 1 is linked to 1, 2 is linked to 2. They go in pairs. So we have our delay here. Now, interestingly, if I take this to something even faster, yeah, so we don't want that. This also controls just like everything that runs off of this. So the depth runs off of this and the tremolo runs off of this. So you're going to want to be careful with that. And then on 2, we also have it's at a slower rate. And this is something you're going to want to do just in general. You're going to want to have things be a bit slower. Usually speeding up, you saw what happens. You get those kind of effects, these sort of really choppy, aggressive effects. Sometimes you can get really detuned delete effects because we have the sync on, another important button that is on. And this one is on a dotted rhythm while this one is not. But basically, the reason we want it slower is slower tends to be a little more transparent and meld a little better versus faster, which will be a little more aggressive and obvious. And this is just a taste thing, depends on the kind of effect you're going for. But basically, that's all the important stuff. There's one other subtle thing here. We see there's a phase shift between the two. So on line 1, they're both at 0-degree phase, which just means the left and right channels will be lined up. But on the second LFO, there is a phase shift of 180 degrees, and it's going to mess with the stereo image. And since it's crazy effect processing, it's not going to be that big a deal in the end, because the whole idea is to introduce phasing. So if later on in the mix, if we sum it to mono and there's phasing, that's like, it doesn't matter to us because we wanted that in the first place. So that's what's going on sort of there. So that's the chorus. And then if we look at here, what's going on, it's simply being dialed up and then dialed in and out musically as is required by the beat. Now there is one other thing I did. I'm using a wave shaper as a kind of volume knob. So if I don't have this wave shaper, and what the wave shaper is doing is it's actually turning on right here and then turning off. If I don't have it, it sounds like this. Oh, in context. So it'll still sound fine by itself, but in context, it'll be too soft. So you see how it sort of tucks behind everything? It's still there. If you're listening for it, you can hear it. But I really wanted it to stick out, be the thing that really pushes us into the next section. So instead of using a volume knob, you can actually use a wave shaper. And this is just bringing it up, gives you a little bit more tonal control. And this is just a great way to sort of bring it up as an alternative to volume knob. And that is how you can create a cool lead effect. If you have any questions about this, let me know, subscribe, and have a blessed day.